All right, so we're moving through this course mapping process, right? We started with our enduring understanding, our big ideas, our threshold concepts. We wrote measurable learning objectives or outcomes, and then we decided on the evidence. What assessment methods and instruments are we going to use to prove that they've learned what we intended for them to learn? Now we're going to start filling in the blanks. How do you make sure students are able to gain the knowledge? What resources and learning events are you going to plan in order to help get them there?
So in regard to learning events, there are a few things, other situational factors that might inform your decisions at this point. I won't go over all of these, obviously, but a few I'd like to speak about include Chickering and Gamson's 7 principles for good practice in undergraduate education, but it also applies to those of you who teach graduate education. One of the good principles, the good practices, is to emphasize time on task, which some of you talked about analysis and synthesis as important cognitive domains that you'd like to build in your students. And time on task helps students, especially with you there to provide feedback, helps students build those essential skills. One other thought to put out there is, as you know, if you've tried to get into the library recently, they've begun work on the Mill Classroom building in front of the library. That last bullet there, collaborative and cooperative learning, there's a ton of research and lots of literature on that aspect. And as you probably know, all of the new classrooms in both the Mill Classroom building and the library reconstruction will feature collaborative furniture and setup. So that would be, if you plan to teach in the beautiful, sparkling new building, and I hope you do, those of you who are teaching face-to-face, you might want to take a look at that pedagogical principle to inform your decisions at this stage.
So we all tend to favor one or more of these pedagogical principles or learning theories. One of my favorite is constructivism. I love to have students actively doing things. And so that kind of drives the kind of instructional strategies and activities that I plan for my students to be able to achieve their learning objectives and outcomes. One thing you want to make sure that you consider when planning these strategies and activities is that they're appropriately challenging for the level that you are. You wouldn't want a second year, sophomore being challenged to the same degree as a senior or a graduate level student in a master's program. So making sure that you are still going to want them to know certain things and be able to do certain things, and those may match, but to what level may differ. So making sure that the strategies and activities that you're having them to do in order to achieve that learning is appropriately challenging. Should be based on real world problems and situations. That context anchors their learning. It helps them to understand why they're learning it and helps that in learning to be enduring. It's purposeful. They understand the why of what it is that they're doing, how that's going to help further their knowledge and their skills. And it's meaningful and interesting. Do you all use a variety of different, I'm sure you all use a variety of instructional strategies and activities in your current classes. Can you all share what some of those are in the chat box? Share some of your current instructional strategies and activities that you are using in your courses. All right, so as you all are sharing some of the activities that you utilize in your classes, this is just a visual to help you think through. There's a variety based on complexity, very simple instructional activities that you can do with your classes to very complex. So pausing for reflection, which we have done periodically throughout this session, is letting you read and think about what it is that we're discussing, having you to write about it, discuss it, having you all to share your thoughts and ideas on those things. I'm giving you some examples of real world cases of things that I've done in my own classes. So all the way up to jigsaw discussions, experimental learning. So we're increasing in complexity in the type of activities that we're planning. I want you to also take a look at this chart or matrix that we have here that provides the instructional strategies that you could use based on the level of Bloom's taxonomy that you're trying to achieve. So at the bottom, you have the action words, the action verbs of things that you want them to know or be able to do. And at the top, you have different types of activities that can help you to get them there. And keeping in mind, these should be driven by your objectives and your outcomes and how they're going to be assessed. Does anyone have any comments or thoughts about this particular chart? See a question from Leslie. Are you responding to her question? The presentation can also be provided. All right. We're going to move along. Another way to think about the kinds of instructional strategies and activities that you're going to use in your class is not only the domains that we discussed, cognitive, affective, and psychomotor, but you can also think about the level of participation that you want to achieve, engaging your students in different size classes. And you'll note that a lot of activities are more highly engaging and participatory when they're small, individual small groups. When you get into large class sizes, we all know it's much more difficult to engage students and have them all to participate. But there are some activities, as you can see here, that are designed to have students to be engaged, such as class discussions, for example. So that's another way of thinking about that.
And we'll have our next professional development seminar will be a face-to-face version in FOI 246 on March 24th. The link is in your chat box, and you can find out more and register there.
All right, so we've kind of gone through this process now, and really your content and your instructional materials that you're going to design and deliver in your class are the last thing that you really think about, which is, like we said earlier, different from the traditional way of thinking about it. So when you're thinking about the course content and instructional materials that you can present, there's lots of different ways you can gather those. You can create them yourselves, or you can curate them. There are third-party publishers and resources that are available. Lots of publishers out there that love for you to use their materials in your courses. And they have some very good electronic resources, digital resources, and very interactive, adaptive types of learning systems in place now. There's also lots of open educational resources, OER, that are available that are created by your peers and provided openly for you to use in your classes, or you can do it yourself, which of course is much more time and labor intensive, but you're going to get exactly what it is that you want out of your materials if you create it yourself. And there's lots of different ways to create your own content. If you decide to curate or create your own, you just need to make sure that you're aware of what the copyrighted fair use guidelines are for that material. I'm sure if you are unfamiliar with it, there are lots of resources that are available that can help guide you in terms of how much and how you can use materials in your courses. When you decide on the content that you're presenting, whether it is face-to-face or online, there's lots of different styles that you can use to deliver your content. For example, you can do lecture captures if you're not in a face-to-face environment, or you want to capture that for later review. So lecture capture, there is the talking head, and you can do very professional level types of talking head videos to present your materials, particularly in an online course. But surprisingly enough, students are actually more engaged by the non-professional recording. So a webcam or cell phone recording your lecture and presenting to them, they're actually more prone to watch that more and longer than they are a professional level talking head. They can only stand about 1 to 2 minutes of a professional recording. Whereas if it's one of your own, uncut, unedited talking head videos, they'll listen for 5, 10, 15 minutes at the most. So you want to chunk those as well. Narrated PowerPoints, same thing. They'll listen to those for amount of time, but again, you want to chunk the material. There's ways that you can present that material and look at the analytics to see how long they're actually viewing each slide in your PowerPoint, and different ways to engage them in that material. So if you want more information about that, we can share that. And then screencasting is a way of recording everything that you're doing on your screen, talking through students through what it is that you're doing. So again, a lot of these are more for the online environment, but you can also utilize them for a flipped or blended environment. I forgot to mention the interactive tutorials, so having them to do click and drag and drop kinds of activities. So as I was saying before, a lot of this is driven, what you're going to do is driven by the delivery mode, whether it's a blended or a flipped class. You can utilize these to different degrees, or whether it's an online course, synchronous or asynchronous. So they're all there online at the same time, like we are right now, or asynchronous course, meaning they can do it whenever it's convenient for them. So that kind of drives some of that content delivery as well. Your delivery, organization, and sequence of your material, one of the things you want to think about is whether or not you're pushing the material out to them when you want them to have it, or do you want them to be able to pull the information, access it when they need it, when they want it. So that's one of the things you want to consider. And then the sticky learning idea was introduced by a book called Made to Stick in 2007 by the Heath brothers. And they talked about there are things that when you hear them, they just stay with you. And they have since come up with sticky learning methods that you can use to increase the chances of your students retaining the learning that takes place. And those are things like case studies, scenarios, story-based learning, active learning, gamification. So all of those, each one of these could be their own workshop.
So they're also based in cognitive science principles. So there is some science behind how these work.
Yes. So we're just introducing you to these ideas. And if you want more on that, you can contact the Video Center for consultation or upcoming workshops. And last but certainly not least is the idea of accessibility. So however you present your course content and your materials, you want to make sure that it is accessible for all students. Oops, I clicked one too fast there. So again, what we end up is, from this backwards design process, a course map that clearly outlines what our big ideas, our course goals are. It gives us very clear, measurable statements of what we want our students to learn and be able to do. It outlines how we're going to provide that evidence for their learning, and then what instructional strategies and activities that we're going to use to get them there. So that's what our course map will look like when we are finished with this design process. And if we've done everything correctly, we should arrive at our destination, which we said at the very beginning was what? Student learning. So I know that was fast and furious, but we hope that it provided you a good overview of how you can think through the design of your course and map out exactly what you're doing for every step of the way. Do you all have any questions for us? There are, I'm not as sure about that. I know there's a resource on campus that does the professional level videos. I'm sure that we have some resources, Diane, in the Video Center, that you can contact and let them know that's what you're interested in doing, and they'll let you know about scheduling and what they can do to assist you. So I think it's the media production group on campus is one, and then the Video Center is another one.
I believe the media production group is in it's either, there's one in the Harvard College of Business, but there's also one out by where all the satellites are. So are there any other questions before we wrap up? So because you were part of a landmark group of people who attended the first ever online PDS, we'd like you to complete this online feedback. It's quite brief, less than 10 questions, and we'd appreciate learning more about your experience. today. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us. Feel free to contact either Diane or myself. I'm Chandra Bowers, Diane Boyd, if you have any questions about what was presented today.
Thank you so much. Where are you?